Hey friends, so anybody who knows me knows that I love a joke. Corny jokes, terrible jokes, dad jokes, kid jokes, any jokes, I'll take them and enjoy them and probably share them with anyone who will listen for like the next 10 years. With that said, there are some things that are really just not joke-worthy. As in, they are in poor taste to make fun of, or they are just plain disrespectful. Now, where the line is between a joke and disrespect is going to be slightly different for everyone. But there are some basic parameters that I think any human being with a basic sense of decency can figure out is not okay to cross. And I know what you might be thinking right now. Some people are just too sensitive these days. They can't take a joke. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think it's that some things are just not funny anymore, or they were never really funny to begin with. And as we have evolved a bit as a society, or at least I'd like to think we have learned to know better on some subjects. And when you know better, you do better, right? So all this to say that there are specific things which might be offensive to you that might not be offensive to me and vice versa, but there are some things that should be offensive to everyone. Because at the end of the day, racist jokes are a form of racism. Homophobic jokes are a form of homophobia. Sexist and misogynist jokes are a form of sexism and misogyny. This matters because jokes about stuff like this shapes people's beliefs and actions. They create small-minded stereotypes and perpetuate negative, oversimplified views about other people. It creates this us versus them mentality that often legitimizes prejudices, portraying them to be less worthy of respect. And that is never okay, because all human beings are worthy of respect. Period. Anyway, look, people have always kind of treated other people like crap and made them the butt of jokes. That's nothing new. But 20 or 30 years ago, you rarely heard from the people who were getting crapped on, and even less so in their own words. The world is arguably a more inclusive place now. Anyone with internet access pretty much has a platform where they can speak their mind and air their grievances to the whole world if they choose to. People are also less willing now to be silent about things that are not okay. That is not a bad thing. I won't argue that some people take it a bit far, choosing small battles versus the greater good of the war, but that's true for just about anything that people are given autonomy on. This is really a topic that we could talk about for a while, but we won't at this moment because we've got to get back to the point of this message. Everyone likes to think they are hilariously witty and make people laugh. I mean, I know I do. There is inherently nothing wrong with that, and there shouldn't be. Laughing is good for you, and so is being a little self-depreciating sometimes. It actually takes a very secure person to laugh at themselves. I know that I have done some dumb stuff before that is laugh-worthy, and the first person laughing at me has been me. And when someone good-naturedly ribs me about things like this, I laugh right along with them. However, what about when a joke goes south in a direction that you feel is a bit too personal or too deep of a dig? Or if it's a joke that seems to have become a recurring theme, being told in slightly different ways in front of others at your expense, leaving you feeling humiliated. One of those things that's funny until it's not funny anymore. You know what I mean? Or it's an ad hominem campaign of sarcasm about things like your personality or your appearance or your values, and it's being perpetrated by someone like a really close friend or a partner who, really? Shouldn't they be defending you against things like that instead of being the instigator of them? I have found that sometimes we genuinely may not realize that we offended someone or disrespected them and went too far when we thought we were being funny. It happens. The person who was the butt of the joke then says something to you like, "I don't think that's funny," and they ask you to stop making fun of them. Two things happen next. The person apologizes and then changes the behavior, or they become angry and defensive, saying things like, "You're too sensitive, you can't take a joke." The second option is, to put it simply, not okay. It's not okay at all. It's a denial of your perception and an invalidation of your emotions. It's a little abusive, and more often than not, it can be indicative of something else that might be lurking below the surface between you and that person. Back in college, many years ago, I took a class that required us to read a book written by Sigmund Freud called Jokes and Their Relation to the Unconscious. In that book, Freud asserted that people will often tell jokes as a vehicle of disclosure about their true or perhaps hidden feelings. So basically, it allows us to express things that we would normally not have the stones to say to someone's face in a serious tone. But if you make it a little jokey joke, it's a lot more palatable. This was written in, I think, 1905, so obviously I'm paraphrasing here, but you get the gist. In this same book, he also discussed how jokes also allow people to release pain or shame about themselves, which kind of tracks too. I mean, nobody makes fun of people harder than people who are struggling with it. And there have been quite a few people who have made a career out of making others laugh and have then ended their own lives, with one of the most famous and shocking having been Robin Williams back in 2014. And listening to him perform, you would have never thought he was hiding some heavy-hearted things, but seemingly he was. Anyway, you know, Freud has some interesting theories about a lot of things, some which I think are pretty far-fetched. But in the case of jokes being vessels for other feelings, I think he was actually onto something there. Some jokes do, in fact, have underlying feelings behind them. Sometimes those feelings are contempt or resentment or some kind of agenda, like manipulation or diminishment of value. I mean, how often do you hear someone using a low-hanging fruit like appearance to make fun of someone who is, shall we say, at a different level in life than they are? I'll use an example. Let's pretend we are observing a scenario where we see a woman in a business suit at a sandwich shop drive-thru. The man working said drive-thru asks her for her phone number as he hands her the order. She declines politely, letting him know that she's not interested. He then says, loud enough for a nearby coworker who saw the whole exchange to hear, "So, you think you're too good for me, huh? You look like a narwhal anyway." Whether or not the woman actually looked like a narwhal is not relevant. The guy making the joke is showing a little resentment there about the rejection, and in order to feel better and less insecure about it, he is trying to diminish her value to be a little less, sort of like a, I don't want you anyway kind of statement. Do you think he would have said that same thing if she said she was interested or gave her phone number? I'll bet you a sandwich that he would definitely not have said that. He also may not have said it either if the coworker hadn't been seeing what had transpired. If there's anything that fragile egos hate, it's definitely witnesses. So when confronted with a joke that is not so much a joke as it is an attempt to belittle, humiliate, or reduce us, does the whole "it was just a joke" really assuage how it makes you feel? Not really. It's still disrespectful, and you have the right to still be upset about it. Whatever the person's reasons for what they said are not relevant. It's impact, not intent, that matters here. Speaking of which, next week's video is about that very topic. It's sort of related to what we're talking about here. It's worth noting that sometimes in that space between a joke and disrespect, what makes a difference is the very important role of familiarity and rapport. For example, when I get together with my good friends, we make fun of each other all the time. We do it in a playful, good-natured way, and everyone knows there's nothing but love in all of it. We can do this because we know each other. We have that rapport. So, if I walk into my bestie's house without knocking, which I often do, and yell out, "Yo, I'm hungry. Where's my dinner, bitch?" a couple of things are going to happen. One, I'll probably get a middle finger. I mean, we are from New Jersey. And then I'll get a hug, followed by that dinner I was hoping for. If I walked into the house of, say, my neighbors 3 to 4 doors down, who I don't really know other than waving to them when I check the mail, and said those very same words, what do you think would happen? Am I getting a hug? Or am I getting a, who the hell do you think you are? Get out of my house. There definitely wouldn't be dinner. And if I'm lucky, there won't be cops called either. So what's the difference here? It's the familiarity. With my bestie, who I have known for more than 30 years, she knows that I'm joking. That other person doesn't know me like that. So they have no idea what my intentions are. They don't know I'm joking. There's no rapport. People should, in theory, understand this and not push the edge of the respect envelope when first meeting someone. Yet, you'd be surprised to learn that some people absolutely do not get that, either because they're really just that obtuse or they're just a-holes. And in your early interactions with them, they might make an off-color, disrespectful joke, not knowing or caring what funny means to you. Saying that this is not the way to make a good first impression is an understatement. But you know what? Someone showing their ass that early on saves me time. Now I don't need to bother to entertain further conversations with them. Cool. I can move on to someone else who's less of a troglodyte. When we are not the target of a joke that is disrespectful and simply witness it, that puts us in a spot too, doesn't it? Do we laugh? Do we not laugh? Do we speak up and call the person out on what they said? Do we stay quiet? There's no real right answer on how we deal with seeing someone else hurt another person, whether it be with words or anything else for that matter. Sometimes our first instinct is to try to smooth things over, to remain quiet just to keep the peace. But to put it bluntly, that's a BS choice. Just like remaining silent when you are being disrespected implies that you're just fine with it, the same goes for when someone else is being disrespected. Remember that what you laugh at reveals a lot about who you are. So if you're laughing along with that person who's being disrespectful, if you're just letting that slide right by you, you are sending a message that that it's okay. That it's okay to be an a-hole and say inappropriate things about other people, even though it's not. It's not at all. So what do you do instead? Remember, when you stop giving a clown attention, they will stop performing. The same goes for making ignorant jokes. If you stop entertaining that garbage and call them out on it, the person will have no choice but to evolve, or at least I hope so. Sadly, I found that most people who do stuff like that on the regular, who feel the need to make jokes like that because they like to get a rise out of people, or they like being edgy or controversial, do it because they are small individuals who try to make themselves feel powerful at other people's expense. People who are mature, confident adults don't feel the need to do that. They also don't feel the need to use tactics like racist, sexist, or homophobic jokes to try to assert dominance or cut others people down. Insecure people do that. And your insecurities are too damn loud, bro or sis. And you know, I have found that when the tables are turned on people like that, when someone makes a disrespectful joke about them, they get real upset and saying, I was just joking, or why can't you take a joke, doesn't seem to be okay with them, even though they expect you to be okay with it when they do it to you. There's a lot I could say here, but I think this sums it up well. If you can't take it, don't dish it out. So the point here is, you can be funny without being disrespectful. You can be funny without making other people feel bad about themselves or picking at their insecurities. You can be funny without cutting someone down for things that they have no control over. In other words, you can be funny without being an a-hole. And that's what you come across as when you use jokes to belittle people or embarrass them on purpose, or spread hatred and contempt towards other people who may not be the same as you. There's nothing wrong with jokes. There's nothing wrong with good-natured humor or even poking a little fun at someone about things that you know they'll laugh at themselves about along with you. But there are lots of things wrong with disrespecting people and or verbally abusing them. There are lots of things wrong with making blatant discriminatory comments under the guise that it's just a joke. It's not that we have become too sensitive these days. It's that we have become more an accepting, inclusive society. We have become braver in speaking up against things that are wrong. We are standing up for ourselves more. We are calling people out for bad behavior instead of just sweeping it under the rug. None of this is a bad thing. I will take that over the good old days where you could say whatever to whoever, no matter how inappropriate it was, and nobody said a word. Because trust me when I say that when you're the target of that disrespect, there was nothing good about those old days. Friends, sometimes humor is subjective and situational. Context matters. Rapport with the person you're speaking to matters. And when in a group, knowing your audience matters. And so does being a decent human being to others. You can say something funny without punching below the belt. You can also be funny and still be respectful. You have to recognize when enough is enough and someone has gone too far. You have to learn to recognize it in yourself, too. Do not tolerate disrespect. Speak up. And speak up for others when they are being disrespected, too. It's not acceptable. And it's never been funny. That's all I've got for you this week. I'll be back next week with another priority message. Until then, take good care of yourselves. Bye.